Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending where you are. On this discussion, a bit alone, but with your spirit around me, it's based on what the team asked me. They asked me to speak about a very, very discreet and hidden person with whom we had the privilege to collaborate for almost 9 years. When he was at Saint Laurent for the menswear, then when he was at DIOR HOMME for 7 years, Mr. HEDI SLIMANE. Yes, Mr. Slimane is a very hidden and a very discreet person. I will define it like a man who had an absolute obsession of perfection. He wanted to share an absolute extreme concentration, focus. It could be about the looks, it could be about the music, it could be about the set. Everything always has to be in an absolute coherency based on his vision. It could be the styling, it could be the way the video is. It could be the advertising, it could be all the furnitures. He is also, i.e., on DIOR HOMME, first redesign the whole showroom and the whole office with the whole furnitures, from tables to chairs to light to everything was overseen, to be able to have his creation in a surrounding which is masterized, under control. But it makes total sense. When you have a global vision, it's better than you have everything under control. And by making this and pushing the people around him to focus to a point, you arrive to create a kind of electric emotion. And this electric emotion is what you see and you have seen on the explosion of his aesthetic. And this is not only about still life. It's about a movement, and this movement is due to the movement of the boys in the suits, in the movement of the hair, and the movement inside the music, the movement of the light, the movement of the wave of sound. It's a kind of philosophical point of view, how to masterize wave. The first time I've been called by the head of communication for Saint Laurent menswear. It was in the 2000s. And we collaborate as production, as light design, but not calling the models and not deciding of anything, just to make happen what Eddie was asking to him and him to us and to me. We made the first show. It was in the Gehry building of the called the American Center. So with the structure of Gehry, which is unbalanced and always ready, you have the feeling to fall, but in reality you have a total disharmony which brings an harmony in it. The inside was a bit the same, and he wanted no shadow. He wanted things to be as natural as possible, not to see technique at all. The backdrop with a big screen with the logo of YSL, like in polymer turning. And we made 2 shows inside this space, this venue, and then over. He left, the house went to another group. So I came and meet Eddie. And Eddie at that moment really had an absolute clear vision of what DIOR HOMME was supposed to be. I'm not talking about the slim, I'm not talking about the stretch, I'm talking about materials. Materials, lacquer, could be concrete, could be metal. Colors have to be lacquer red, gray, white, black. Things were mirror, fluorescent, everything was really, I would say in a way, dynamically ordered, as you had a drawing to do with 10 pencil, and then you know you will not use another pencil. You're going to use these 10 pencil. And the first show was happening inside the Musée des Sciences Naturelles. It was a room, it was the mineralogy, I think, of the room, where the first time this room was empty. It was not a very high room, not very the high ceiling. It was with beams, and then you have a door, and you have four stairs to go in another room, who became the backstage. So when I draw a box for the models to come on a band up, so with light behind to have a backlit effect with the hair, and then the rest had to design lamp. We were integrated in the ceiling between the beams to show as we haven't done really anything. Eddie came, and as he done each time, he had a kind of inspection. But that is a responsibility that you feel on your shoulder, which is one of the positive reason for which we are always so much try to focus on this, because he make everybody around him feel his own responsibility in under his eye. So when that show happened, it was the first time that kind of music happened. Music. For each show, Eddie went to see different group to try to bring a kind of narrative arc of the collection. The music was he composed or remixed directly by the artist. The artist could be Phoenix, Beck, The Rakes, Franz Ferdinand. It was always things that he chose, either from Paris, either from Berlin, or either from London, and that he put like one of the elements, and listening to the music make you understand also how the show will finish, and how the light and how the set has to be involved inside this show. The stretch of proportion. It was he showed me images from a film where the camera was very, very high, and you saw two boys with dogs arriving, and you see this image. And so after seeing that, I proposed to him that we stop shooting his shows from a normal eyes cameraman, but we bring the camera almost to the floor to be able to have this elongation of the proportion. It was this thought from him of every little details. One point more was a bit the frustration to create so much electricity and energy during the show that the people love this experience of the audience, with a generosity inside that to share. Not share him, he was quite on his side, really discreet, but more to share this new vision and this new direction he was going to. The second show, well, a very nice little story. The second show was about Boys Don't Cry. So we begin working on that as usual with him. We have a show on the 21st of January, and on the 26th, I was invited to come to see him, and we begin to talk about space research to be confirmed in the next couple of weeks, and then plans, models, materials. So we have a lot of time to develop every and each details. That's another kind of exercise. It's an exercise where himself hated to go to take decision at the last moment. So because of those, we could begin to grab the concept, to listen what he was thinking about music, and then the volume, and then from there on, come with proposition, material, tests. Most of the time I was with a cigarette pack where there is a little bit of aluminium, and when we're talking about mirrors, we play with the aluminium itself. Had aluminium in my bag, like a roll for kitchen, to try to create shapes. So it was the first kind of, it was an installation. It was an art installation this time. But this art installation was not considered by people like art, even if HEDI's work, photos of or objects are in galleries. That was considered like a set, but we wanted the people to dive inside the art installation, where the artist is not him in a way, but the artist is his vision of a brand. This is no need to go to ask to this amazing artist to come to work with us or to come to work with him. Mostly, it was just about diving the people inside the installation itself. So, boys don't cry. First idea, glass. I was working on suspension at that time, so I propose we have drop of glass suspended under a roof, white, like a white roof, and that you have one LED red under each one. So when we switch it on, when the roof will be low, then we have this red like tears of blood, and then we go up, and on the back, he wanted a full wall, super high and super wide, in lacquer red, real lacquer, because everything need to be real. There is no fake. There is no as. It was real elements. This real lacquer red wall, amazing, made by people who are not used to make lacquer to such a surface, mostly with no separation, no line at all. It has to be totally as I would say, black like a mirror. And the definition of this red was clear. When he say red, you see which red you want. So this show was supposed to be played on the evening of a Sunday, and for diverse reason, personal reason of some of the people who were at the direction, 5 days before, it changed to be at 1 p.m. So I went to say, well, if we go to 1 p.m., nobody will see the tears of blood. And so because budget is budget, nobody saw it but us the night before for the rehearsal. Because that was another thing which could be considered like luxury budget-wise, but it's crucial. Also, it's very important. Each time we can do it, we do it to have a technical rehearsal the day before or a technical rehearsal with models the night before. By that way, every models have experiment the show space, have experiment the music, and Eddie have been able to take all these pictures. Eddie have been able to oversee every details. When I'm sitting here, when I'm sitting there, what I've done before. There was a game with the production that Marie told me, that I heard afterwards. It was, Thierry is coming at 3, we had to see at 2 it must be finished, so we have to see how many remarks he could do. And I was feeling the same game with Eddie, how many remarks he will do. I hope that each time, because from a model and drawings to a reality, any rendering will never give the reality, mostly with light, mostly with reflection of light on a lacquer wall, as you can imagine. So that was this show. There's one element on the show that we changed here. It was that the first show, because the space was not very wide, we had only one line or 2 lines of models. Here, we experiment another way, which was the model were coming on 3 or 4 lines. Each model has a line, and so sometime I could send on line 1, sometime on line 4, sometime on line 3 in an irregular way, but the model is coming back on almost the same line. So at the end, from lateral, you always have silhouette in front of you, and on front you always have also silhouette, but with a separation of space enough to take photos properly. That way was also the way to move. As I said, the movement was crucial for Eddie / the garment. So when you see the big dress, it was the movement, and when the way this was a moment where you have 4 boys coming together, all together, which was a change. What I was speaking to the model was saying, you have to create this energy, because the casting was part agency and part street casting by Eddie himself, around the world. He can go in St. Petersburg, he can go in London or in Hindenburg, he can go in Berlin, in Munich, and he go anywhere he think he will find the good profile he's looking for. And basically, I said to the models and the no models, imagine that the guy in front of you at the end of the runway, which are the photographer, have said something very bad about you. You really want to knock him out. So you have to walk to them, looking only to them with this energy or aggressivity in the eyes, and this mostly focus in the eyes. And then when you arrive at 3 or 4 meters from them, then you turn back. You turn back on yourself straight, really hard, and go back to the backstage, as if you had delivered your message already. So this movement of speed and also of back and forth have created a very specific DIOR HOMME by HEDI SLIMANE way of showing. And the emotion of people, the focusing of people was very important. On the first show, there was also a very emotional moment, because on the first show, Monsieur Saint Laurent was sitting in the room. And he came on the backstage, and I know from Eddie that it was a very emotional moment for him, bracket closed. After the other show we made, not in the good order, would be always elements either moving, i.e. at the Musée de l'Homme, we have the lamps which were suspending as arches. It was the show with the dress, where suddenly went down at the finale. Not expected, but people at the end expect something. Another show, we had 3 or 4 huge chandeliers in speakers with fluorescent a neon tube under it, and then when the music was coming, it was like wave of grave. It goes up and up and up. There was one show I was problematic because I wanted to do for him something like totem. So one was totem of light, with inside a lamp called a Svoboda, created by the TP Mr. Svoboda. Very directional lamps, normally used for dancing or for opera, and put it inside a mirror, epoxy painted black, with holes for the lamps. It created on the floor a star, or a half a star. So basically when the model arrived, they received the beams. So it was very simple, there was no movement here. Another one who was at the Théâtre de l'Odéon rehearsal space, where we created mirrors, back and forth mirrors, one in front of the other. But the mirrors, they're in silver, but other was another kind of darker silver. The people arrive, they walk between it, and they see them at the infinite. So it was an animation for the photos. But when the first model arrived, these went up and up at the rhythm of the walk of the model to stay in the air. One other with mirrors was at the Musée de l'Homme, audience on one side, mirrors positioned at like 2.5 meters from the windows, and with a frame of metal, also epoxy perfect, but one mirror was a mirror see-through in a gray blue, the other one was a mirror see-through with a kind of brownish color. That was the color that he chose, and we made a measure. So the model were coming in front of that, in front of the audience, and coming back behind. Due to the light coming from the outside, it gives an impression of reality, unreality, who was amazing. There was the show where I put some totem, but I wanted to have something turning for the finale, and I wanted something would be really like a kind of a light art installation that people can see alive, something we can directly go on a museum. So I proposed that we take the moving part of the moving lamps, and then I take the lamps away and build a mirror, with a mirror. One side the mirror was curved and made with little piece of mirror like a mirror ball. The other one, the mirror was straight, silver on one side, would give the light even stronger. And so these were oriented to a point at the beginning of the show, And for the finale, they begin to move. Having the beams on them, very few light on the models, it gives a moment of emotion and surprise where, in a way, create also frustration because you wanted to see it more. There is one show where Eddie wanted to create architecture in the air, like a fake real architecture, so that would be able to be done with laser. But the laser have to react to bounce on a mirror and to have a perfect angle of 90 degrees. This mirror has not to have the silver under but in front. So we didn't know how to put them on the floor. And then on a discussion it comes to, on the floor of a concert, there's speakers. So we took the shape, exactly the shape of the speakers. We remade on measure exactly shape of the speakers, but in metal, epoxy, shiny black. And everything was positioned in a perfect element and angle to have the beams of laser recreating a perfect rectangular shape in the air. If you have 12 of them, then you have boom, 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 boom. This progression. This idea, who disappear when the light come in, brought to the other one who was at the Palais de Tokyo, where we made arches on his demand. If I remember, he drew that set, that arches, which are one smaller than the other, higher and higher, with 3 different tone of light pink. It was light pink beige, very, very subtle. And you have the models coming through these arches, creating another way of seeing the proportion due to a kind of frame. One of the last show we made with him was, last show with the fire one. And we had this, production-wise, so much problem. And we succeed by having something like 12 firemen in the room, all dressed in black, heating on the side, with this fire, special half-liquid product who was made for picture with very few smoke, almost no smoke, and the fire going vertically and horizontally on a big axis. So it was a very strong moment. It was at the tennis club, very strong moment to have the fire coming up and the models coming out. There was this other show where the idea was really to show the way to go, where we included V-shape in the floor with the first LED inside. And so they were playing like in an airport. Because when the plane land, you have all this light on the side. And this one were included in the floor with the V-shape, who was connected to the music and also to print and cut that Eddie had made on his collection. And I think that to summarize this experience of all the shows, the first ideas, the last ideas come from him. He was taking from us suggestion. He was waiting for suggestion. And when the suggestion was coming, he will twist it, he will move it, or he will take it back. And it was a super interesting collaboration because, first of all, yes, what I say, I'm not doing what I want, I'm doing what I think the designer wants. And with the collaboration with Eddie, it was really to try to understand what he was saying. He's not speaking very loud, and he was very specific on his words. So how can we interpret and being in the absolutely right direction? I remember for a party we made for him in Tokyo, that where there was skaters, and I light on the skaters to try to have the shadow. That was, I think, this vision he had because I saw some photos that he took of skaters. And on the other side, there were the concert of Phoenix, and there was bars. And so the bar, he said, I don't want the barman to be behind the bar. I want the barman to be like go-go dancer on the top of the bar. And so the audience is asking for their glass to somebody standing up on a table. So we create this table, try to make understand that to all the Japanese team in production, local receptive one, to understand the plan and how we were thinking of making it, i.e. people are coming and in a way begging for having a drink, and somebody dancing and giving it to him burning down. The image and the proportion again was so slick and clear, and he was doing himself a casting of the barman that you can see. The barman you can see, there was other barmen behind who were preparing the drink and giving them to the one standing up. There was also this launching of the perfume of Higher at the Louvre, when we had to make the people to cross the marble sculptures, the Greek marble sculptures, but we're not allowed to bring any sound or any light inside the Louvre. It was not respectful for the sculpture, so over the heat, etc. So what I done was to make a frame of red gelatine that we brought and put in front of the outside window. It was on ground floor, and then we lighted from outside. And I may say that the red, the deep HEDI SLIMANE DIOR red, projected on marble sculpture, it's something looked like skin. It was amazing. Then we go down to the pyramid, and then he designed, say, I want this shape of presentation of perfume. But it was so slick that no one wanted to take one bottle. They thought that it will break the harmony of it. And then this is where I designed benches and seats and tables just to be displayed in the space. This experience, I think, whatever people can say, he is a rare person, a really rare person. One of these rare persons who can design from furnitures to clothes, to a shop, to a building, to a pencil. He's at the same, because he has such a clever analyze and a sharp analyze, and he's so obsessed about not stretching at all. It was just one moment. He's obsessed of the perfection. What can fit at that moment? What is my vision of fitting from a brand? And whatever brand he had been, he always changed it. He never used the things before, but he adapted to his vision of a modern brand, which is the genius of some of these people. But also, I barely see somebody working so much, as is his life was about his creations. Do we call it an artisan, you will say? Absolutely, yes. Put his hand on it, oversee every details, that's an artisan way. Is it an artist? For me, he is, definitely, but not like a fame, artist like a job to be famous, but mostly, I don't even think it to be famous was something interesting. He hid himself, and more time goes. I haven't seen him from years, but more time goes, more he hide himself, creating what everybody can see. Thank you so much.